Hi, welcome to Learning Leader Spotlight, where we interview the learning leaders that are making the news today. I am Leigh Anne Lankford, your host. I'm the president of Training Pros, which is an L&D staffing company. We like to say, if you have more projects than people, let us find you the best candidate to start your projects with confidence. Today, we have as our guest an old friend of mine, Michael Lux. He is the Senior Director of Customer Education at Procore Technologies. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Leigh Anne. Great to be here.
Michael, can you tell our audience a little bit about you in about 60 seconds, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Michael Lux. I'm currently Senior Director of Customer Education at Procore. I've been in the learning learning and enablement business for 25 years-ish, getting long in the tooth. But I've kind of been through a few revolutions around learning, which has been fun, really getting everything online and getting everything on the internet. It's been really exciting. For myself personally, I'm pretty passionate about learning. Education made a big difference in my life. Along the way, it opened a lot of doors for me that I don't know would have been opened otherwise. So I really have this natural passion for education, which is great because it gets me up in the morning and gets me to work. But my work has been both inside enablement, working with sales, working with pre-sales, working with channel partners, working with all sorts of people inside the organization, as well as customers themselves, and sometimes selling that and sometimes not selling it, but really delivering learning outcomes in lots of different ways for a while.
Great. Can you tell us what initially drew you into the learning and development field?
Sure, and I don't even know necessarily, but there is a little bit in terms of, I found myself kind of in a training role where I was training people, I started out as a pioneering skills instructor in the woods, and then I was working, I was studying for my GRE for graduate school, and I was asked just sort of out of the blue, would you like to teach this stuff? And I started teaching, it was a little bit more sort of, direct than that, but I got into teaching for test preparation for the SAT, the GRE, the GMAT, the LSAT. And that really just kind of opened up the world because I got to understand curriculum, I got to understand outcomes, both as a learner and then as someone who delivered training. And then I just, with that kind of experience being in the front of the room back when the only way we delivered training was in person. I got myself into technology. I started with a company called PeopleSoft, and started as a trainer. And then having known a little bit about curriculum, I started developing curriculum. Then e-learning was coming online, and I got really excited about that. And I took over e-learning and brought that online as a meaningful part of the business. And then, I've discovered that I've got, of course, education is in my DNA, but then managing people, coaching and developing, starting to run a business. So it just kind of, it moved from being a trainer into understanding the business side, and then having training be more of an enterprise operation. And so it's been that kind of journey for me.
It sounds exciting, and I recognized a lot of those words that people might not recognize today.
Yeah.
PeopleSoft, and you called it e-learning, but back then, didn't we call it CBT?
CBT, computer-based learning, or computer-based training. And if we're lucky, it came on a DVD, right?
I remember it being on a disc that you would just move.
Oh my God. Yeah.
From place to
We don't want to age ourselves, Leigh Anne. That's all right. We've seen a bit.
I got the gray hair to show. Okay. What are the biggest changes you've seen in the learning and development space in the last few years?
Well, there's a lot of talk about AI. Let's just start with that, because that is always in a conversation these days. And really trying to understand how that would work in a learning really the authoring and the content development. And, the focus right now is on drudgery. How do we eliminate some of these manual tasks that happen over and over again, and how can we automate them? So that's currently what's going on, and it's exciting. I also am in charge of product documentation and the education relative to just, information that's organized for support and other things. And there's opportunities in there to automate a lot of the content motions with AI. And we're doing that. So that's a big change that, and you got to lean in, right? So that's really where a lot of work is now. But the change beyond that is really trying to understand, or leverage technology to do quicker turn videos and multimedia experiences. Whereas it used to be a very big production to produce, audio visual content, multimedia content. There are tools now that make it easier and make it a quicker turn. And so optimizing education development teams and processes to account for these new tools, where there really are two of them. There's video production, which uses avatars and happens more quickly, and but leveraging that technology for making sure you have learning outcomes. And then also using AI for synthetic voice and, and neuromachine translation and neuromachine voice and neural networks, and bringing that into how we develop our courseware. And leveraging, again, the synthetic voices, the technology that drives faster to market learning deliverables, and then ultimately AI, and continuing to iterate on that. And I think those are the big ones that are happening, in the last couple of years for me and for the team.
Thank you. And yeah, AI is definitely something I keep learning about as much as I can, because it's here.
It's here. And like I've told my team, like, you want to be helping shape how AI is used in our business. And we have the opportunity now, because it is a little bit of a blank slate, to work on how do we establish best practices? How do we ensure that we leverage our people for the best things that they can deliver, and take, like I said, the drudgery out and eliminate some of the more, repeatable and lower level tasks. And so anyway, I love it. Big thing to learn about. Nothing like having something new to learn.
Yes. So where do you see L&D going in the next 5 to 10 years? Or content creation, content?
I think this whole notion of content as a service, where instead of having a large information deliverable or education deliverable, you parse it out and you deliver more micro, but it isn't always much more tailored content, understanding who someone is, what they're trying to accomplish, what their experience is with the product, what they're, where they're trying to get to, getting that information and being able to trigger content that gives them just what they need. I use these three just what you need, just in time, so you can just keep going. And that's like in the system and adoption. And so moving from, there will always be, like, if we talk about learning, there will always be courses, there will always be I assume, and certifications. But as software has become SaaS, and adoption and lack of churn is really important, having content delivered through the sales funnel and then the customer life cycle ensures that customers have the most success, get the most value, and then for us at Procore, we're not losing customers that are really important to us, and we want to be important to them. So it's really looking at content at the service of a journey, the customer journey, and what is the least amount of content to have the right impact at the right time. That's like a whole new architecture and distribution of content. Whereas before it was, these are the deliverables, and there still is, again, like if you want to prepare to implement, if you want to prepare to use at a higher order for multiple people or administer, that's all going to be there. Or you want to troubleshoot, really technical competencies and product competencies, but this whole content as a service, and there's technology, process, and people, right? Or we say it the other way, people, process, technology, that needs to be orchestrated to do this. And the technology piece is important. You've got to have a really good content management system. You've got to have a really good learning management system. You have to have a really good content strategy, so that the components of content that are going into these assets, how to make it configurable, so that if you have a bit of content, can it go in a document? Can it go in a learning course? Can it be delivered in app? Can it be part of an exercise? It needs to be, so that the ultimate efficiency is there in the delivery, and the impact are as potent as possible. I hope that makes sense, but that's where I'm kind of situated with this.
Well, it makes perfect sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. So I think that that's a great vision, and I'm sure that you're implementing that vision now. Let me ask you this. If you had 10 times your current budget at Procore, what would you do?
Go to Hawaii. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. I didn't say salary. I said budget.
That's right. Sorry. Yeah, I think, if I had 10 times the budget, I would, talk about this content as a service. A lot of what I would start to look into an analytics and a sort of really an analytics and an insights platform that looks at this content delivery and that sets up this content delivery for success. And these are not inexpensive investments, and we are moving in that direction, and for Procore, but the analytics, the insights, and the ability to know what we need to know, and then tag the content and bring it in at the right time. That's not easy. It's not inexpensive, but it's not breaking the budget. So that would be one thing. The other thing I think I would do is I would want to have really a team that's focused on getting their arms around the entire company's learning requirements, and then having a strategy for how we optimize building and delivering that, really just extending the remit. Because the more, and it's not like I'm territorial or looking to build an empire, but the more you can get your arms around learning as an overall practice within an enterprise, in my experience, the better it is for an enterprise. So like it's fine if you have learning segmented across different teams, but the more you can consolidate that under like a chief learning officer or just a center of excellence, the better it is for the company. But that requires having people, having shared technology, unwinding things, winding things up. So like a good corporate citizen, I don't know if I need 10x, maybe it would be 5x, but this whole idea that you can extend your technical capabilities and you can also stand up the right model for addressing the enterprise's needs, that's where, and I guess it assumes that if I get that budget, I've got a bigger remit. But I would want to expand my remit. I would want to have technology that drives those insights that we need. And I would want to be able to probably also get to an omni-channel content experience where you're bringing in multiple channels of content, documentation, education, communities, continuing education, industry certifications, bring that all into one sort of unified experience that has the right people building the right content with the right technology. That also requires investment along the way. So, and being able to do that stuff without constraints would be amazing, basically.
Well, thank you for that. What is the skill or the role that you find right now is difficult to find?
Yeah, content strategy, program management from a stakeholder perspective. So, the model that I always go to is you've got program management in the front of your operation that gets with stakeholders, understands their requirements, builds a plan, is responsible for the maintenance, execution, and success of that plan as a role that is complementary and working through like your content shop. Because you got a content shop, but without a front end that can help manage the ecosystem and the stakeholders, shape the requirements, shape the outcomes, and make sure that goes through and is successful, it takes a lot of skill and it takes a lot of experience and learning. And you need to be able to also have business. There's a lot of different skill sets that need to apply in competencies. One is going to be learning. Another is going to be stakeholder management. Another is going to be, if there's a commerce play, business acumen and a commercial sort of, sensibility around what learning would make sense to sell at what level, the whole strategy. So the content strategy that spans the entire life cycle of content with capability to make sure that's successful in every point. I guess I'm asking for the moon a little bit, but that's a role that when you can find it, or not when you can find it, because you can find it, but it's work. You want to make sure you have the right people and you have the right job scoped out in that sort of strategic program management. And because it's not just pure play program management, it's not PMI certification. Again, there are these various levels of integrated understanding of a business, of learning, of stakeholder management, and finding those people at an individual contributor level can be challenging. That's what I would say, because you're asking a lot, and they're out there, and we're out there, but it's really, you really have to be thoughtful and thorough in your analysis and recruiting and hiring.
Fantastic. So this is one media that we're giving people to find about the latest news in L&D and what's going on. Where do you get your news? What do you read or listen to get news?
Sure. I mean, one of the big sources of information is the Content Wrangler, which is Scott Abel, who people may know in the content world. It's an ongoing weekly topical conversation around content, but that means learning, that means strategy, that means AI, it means documentation. And that's sort of if you think about a space macro to micro, macro is absolutely is a content play. And that's where I've been shifting a lot of my focus. Otherwise, Elliot Macy, I think it's Macy, is how you pronounce it. Been around a long time, always good. Josh Berzin, always good, right? Finding these, and they're staples. So I kind of get the hype, the more focused learning there, learning based sort of stuff, then content with Scott Abel and the Content Wrangler. And then finally, from a services perspective, technology services, TSIA, Technology Services Industry Association. I believe they're still called that, but TSIA, they're really good at looking at the education services, the monetized play, education and learning as a part of professional services, the business side of it. So you kind of get the content as a macro, the learning specifically as a pure play learning sort of, inquiry and learning about learning. And then finally the go-to-market commercialized piece. And so it's kind of like that is where I look to get content and, and learn around our business.
Well, thank you for that, because people are always trying to find the best ways to get educated in our field. Last question.
Mhm.
So what book would you recommend to someone who's wanting to become a learning leader?
There's a couple of books. One is really probably the most important that I have been turning to, and it's fairly new, is a book called How People Learn. And it's by Nick Shackleton-Jones. So Nick Shackleton-Jones, and it's How People Learn. And it really looks at if this is looking at how people learn and understanding how your content can be shaped and your programs can be shaped. It talks about the neuroscience of learning and how that kind of ties into storytelling and how we really establish the way that we learn and the way we think from a narrative perspective, especially with learning. And so really that understanding fundamentally and having that as your sort of schema around we need to tell a story to drive an outcome is really valuable, and the neuroscience around that. So, and it's something to be honest with you, there's a lot in there. So going back to it is important. And to be honest with you, I also kind of look to sales or communication or sort of more of a business side of things to help understand how to continue to communicate in a way that's effective in a business context. And another book is Getting to Yes, which is a pretty common and well-known sales book, but it really talks about effective communication person to person. So if you look at how we learn how to communicate effectively, those things really come together. And then it's like I shared with you those sort of those those other sources of information, and it's staying active, so like that, but really looking at the learning, pure play learning, and then also how you be effective in a business context so you can bring that together and be relevant.
Those are two great ones. I've read the Getting to Yes, but I want to get the other one now. I'm a big book person.
Oh, right on.
So thank you so much for coming on. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Look me up on LinkedIn. Send me a message. Probably the easiest way. It's Michael Lux, Lux. I'm sure you can see that. But yeah, and feel free to send a message on LinkedIn. I love meeting people. I love chatting. Would be great to hear from you and kind of share best practices and kind of our experiences. So that I'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Well, I personally want to thank you for being guest on Learning Leader Spotlight. As a thank you, we are going to work with our reforestation partner, One Tree Planted, to plant 5 trees in your name. Those will be planted in Ontario, working on reforesting around the Great Lakes.
I love that. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. I
You're
appreciate
so
it.
welcome. Yeah, that's our charity, and we've planted over 3,000 trees so far by doing that as a thank you to people.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you. And I'm happy to do this and happy to come back anytime, Leigh Anne.
Thank you. And tune in for the next week to hear more from another learning leader. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Leigh Anne.